Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Success Academy. I'm Shashan Dias, and in this video, we are going to talk about how to use cohesive devices in an IELTS essay effectively. Alright guys, so as you know, cohesive devices are connecting words. Words that show the connection between the points that you are writing and also between the question and the answer. Alright, these are words that connect sentences together. These are words that show the relationship between the paragraphs and the sentences that you are writing. Alright, so in an IELTS essay, there are so many cohesive devices you can use. There are 8 mandatory cohesive devices that I believe you should use when you are writing an essay. And also there are so many other cohesive devices you can use depending on the answer that you are writing. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you which cohesive devices are best used where in an IELTS essay. Alright. So in this video, we are going to talk about how to use cohesive devices properly in an IELTS essay. All right. So let me share my screen with you. All right. So we'll start from here. All right. We'll start with necessarily a blank screen. And first of all, let me show you what are the cohesive devices you need when you are writing the essay. What are the essential cohesive devices you need when you are writing an essay? All right. Now, you know, when you're writing an essay, first you have the introduction. All right. And then you have your body. And then you have your conclusion. All right. Now, for the introduction, you don't need to really use a lot of cohesive devices because this is the part where you're introducing the topic. All right. But when it comes to each body paragraph, right, there are almost essential or mandatory cohesive devices that you have to use. Now, if you have learned essay writing structure, you would know that in a body paragraph, there are 4 sections. Okay. In a body paragraph, you have the topic sentence, right? You elaborate that topic sentence, you give an example, and you have a conclusion to this body paragraph. Okay, so for each of these sections or each of these sentences, right, for each of these sections rather, you need to start with a cohesive device, right? So now if you're writing the first body paragraph, you can say firstly. All right. You can say, first of all. You can say, to begin with. Do you get what I mean? So now when you're starting to write the first sentence of your first body paragraph, you need to show that, you need to indicate that, because like we discussed earlier, cohesive devices are words that show the connection between what you're writing. So whatever sentence, whatever point, whatever fact you're writing, it needs to be connected overall to the question, and it also needs to show the connection between each sentence that you're writing, right? So it's all about connectivity. Okay. So you say, okay, firstly, this is the sentence I'm going to write. So you indicate that very clearly. So when the examiner sees your answer, he immediately knows, okay, this is the first one, firstly, to begin with. Do you get what I mean? To elaborate, you can say, to elaborate this in detail. Do you get it? Now, we don't want to put multiple ones for this. I'm not going to put multiple examples. I'm going to elaborate on this in detail, right? You don't have to show, or I'm not going to show you multiple options for this, because again, in the second body paragraph, we are going to need to use something like this. So I'll use a synonym down here. Okay. When you're giving an example, you can say, for example. And when you're concluding your first body paragraph, you can say something like, in summary, right? Or to summarize. Something to that effect you can use. Now, if your second body paragraph agrees with the first, what does that mean? Now, if your first body paragraph and your second body paragraph are talking about two advantages, or if it's talking about 2 points that agree, right, then you can use what I'm going to show you, right? Because if it disagrees, we have to use some other cohesive devices. So same structure, right? Topic sentence. You have to elaborate. You have to give an example, and you have to give a conclusion. So when you're writing the topic sentence, now this agrees with the first, right? So it's a continuation. Okay. So you can say furthermore, right? You can say moreover, in addition to the above, right? In addition to the above, right? Mm, you can also say mm, to add on to the above, right? Words like this can be used, right? To elaborate, you can say to explain this further. Because now here you said to elaborate this in detail, right? To elaborate this. So here you say to explain this further, all right? When you're giving an example, you don't say again, for example, you say for instance, right? And when you're concluding, you can say in a nutshell, right? In a nutshell. Now, if the second body paragraph, so say body two, right, disagrees with the first. So let's say in the first body paragraph, you talk about advantages. But in the second body paragraph, you're going to be talking about disadvantages, right? Or in the first body paragraph, you agree with something. In the second body paragraph, you disagree with something. Then you can't start with furthermore. You have to say, however, on the other hand, right? On the flip side, right? You can say on the contrary. You can use any one of these. So again, to elaborate, now since the second paragraph, you can use the same one to explain this further, right? When you're giving an example, you can say, for instance, right? And when you conclude, you can say, in a nutshell. And finally, for your conclusion paragraph, you can always start that with in conclusion. All right, in conclusion. Now, guys, do you see if you actually follow these cohesive devices, you already have used 8 cohesive devices because in the structure you have to use these. That means your structure is good. You have used 8 cohesive devices. You are positioned well to get good marks or to get a good band score for your IELTS exam, right? So these ones are mandatory, all right? So let me make it a bit bigger and then show it to you. So look at this. These 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. These 8 are essential because if you are actually writing in the structure that we teach you, then these ones have to be there, right? These ones have to be there. If these ones are not there, that means you have not stuck to the structure properly. Okay. Now, outside of these ones, there are some other cohesive devices that you can use. Okay. Now, all right. Okay, so key point here is that you don't have to learn all these cohesive devices that I'm going to show you. All right. Now, these 8 are essential, right? These 8 are essential. You have to know these ones. But what I'm going to teach you now, you don't really have to know everything. Just a few from each slide would be more than enough, right? Okay, and then key point here is if you can use it correctly, then you should use it, or if it is needed, you should use it. Otherwise, don't use it. Like, don't unnecessarily use cohesive devices because you're not going to get marks. You need to use it where it is most important. All right. And again, you don't have to use too many cohesive devices, just as much as needed, right? So roughly about two in each paragraph outside of these. Do you get it? These ones are essential. Outside of these, you can use about two more. All right. Okay. So don't always put it at the start of a sentence. Try to vary where you put it. Right. So again, don't take these into consideration. Any other cohesive devices that you're using, try to, anyway, we are using those four at the start of a sentence, right? So when you're using additional ones, try to use them in the middle of a sentence, right? All right. Now, if you're adding things that are similar to each other, all right, if you're adding similar ideas while writing, you can say in addition, right? Additionally, furthermore, moreover, right? Now, look at this. When you are writing the first body paragraph, we said firstly, but when we are writing a similar idea that agrees with the first one, we say furthermore, moreover, right? Now, even in the middle of a sentence, if you are writing two ideas that connect with each other, you can use any one of these words. All right. Okay. So I'll give you some time to take a good look at it. In addition, additionally, also, to, not only, not only this, but also this one. Moreover, furthermore, as well as. All right. Giving examples. So this is an important one. For example, for instance, such as, namely, a good example of this is, to illustrate this. All right. So whenever you're giving an example, now, anyway, I have taught you the two most important ones. For example, for instance, outside of this, you might not have to use any other cohesive devices, right? But this is just for you to know. So if you don't want to say, for instance, you can just say to illustrate this, right? You can say that. Make sense? When you're comparing similar ideas, you can say likewise, similarly, also, in the same way, equally, right? When you're giving two contrasting ideas, right? Two ideas that don't agree with each other, but however, in contrast, in comparison, even though, on the contrary, on the other hand, so some of these we have already discussed, right? But you could also use this in the middle of a sentence instead of always at the beginning. Make sense? So when you are giving an opinion, now here, this will be very important in your introduction, right? Because in the introduction, you always have to give your opinion, right? According to our structure, if you're writing, always in your introduction, you have to give an opinion. So you can say, in my opinion, in my view, I believe that. So you don't have to know all of this, right? You just have to know one of these, one or two maximum, right? I disagree with. It seems to me that, right? When you're explaining the causes of something, because of, owing to, due to, as a result of. Make sense? All right. So look at this. The ice caps are melting because of global warming. As a result of global warming, the ice caps are melting. So this because of is used in the middle of a sentence. Here it's used at the start of a sentence. As a result of global warming, the ice caps are melting. All right. If you're describing an effect of something, therefore, furthermore, consequently, as a result of, all right, describing effect means when something happens and something happens because of that, we can use these phrases or words, right? Therefore, thus, consequently, as a result of, right? Carbon dioxide emissions have gone up and global temperatures have consequently risen. We must therefore introduce these emissions. All right. So giving reasons, because, the reason why, so, another reason is, right? So the difference between describing effects and giving reasons Is that directly because something happened? If there is an immediate repercussion, if there's an immediate consequence, we can use these words: consequently, therefore, right? But if you're giving a definite reason for something, because of, the reason why, right, we can use these words, right? Sequences and such, guys, again is very important, and like I said, it's mandatory. So firstly, here you can actually say secondly if you're agreeing with the first one. All right, so firstly, secondly, next, then, lastly, finally, right, to begin with, after that. These words are also important to show a sequence in what you're writing. All right, after that the numbers start to decline. Firstly, I believe that governments must act to reduce CO2 emissions. If you are emphasizing on something, right, particularly, in particular, especially, specifically, certainly, obviously, in fact, clearly, right, this example clearly shows that this is the situation. Make sense? Reformulation, like if you write the meaning of something and you want to explain it further, right, in the sense that, now let's say you write a specific sentence, but you want to make it more simple, right? You want to make it easy so that people will understand. You can say, in other words, that is to say, rather, in simple terms, put more simply, right? These are some of the phrases you can use. Conceding ideas, right? So this is the final one. This means when you're acknowledging another point of view, right? That means you have given one point of view, but you're writing a different point of view. You're admitting there is another side to the argument that you have already written, right? Admittedly, on the other hand, another view is, I concede that, I admit that, granted, right? So these are some words you can use if you have written one point of view, but you want to write another point of view, or you admit that there is another point of view. All right. Okay. So I hope you learned something from this video, but so definitely make sure to use these cohesive devices when you are writing your essay. The 8 mandatory cohesive devices you have to use, all right? Because if you want to go for a higher band score, you have to use these cohesive devices. And outside of that, you can try and use a few more depending on what you're writing, all right? Alright guys, with that we are done with the video today. If you like that video, make sure to comment down below, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and share it with a friend. Alright, so till our next video, keep practicing.